There are going to be a lot of measures on the November ballot. And, every couple of years we get into a situation where there's like dueling ballot measures. A couple of years ago, we had dueling sports gambling ballot measures, and neither of them passed because they spent a whole bunch of hate advertising against each other. I can't tell you how many years we've had dueling kidney bills, and I still don't know what either of them were ever about. That's happened a lot. Well, in 2026, in November, we may have dueling Uber bills. One bill that would further regulate Lyft and Uber and rideshare companies, and one that is being put forth by Lyft and Uber and rideshare companies. To talk to us about this is Samer Habbas, the founding managing partner of Habbas and Associates. Their website is habbaspilaw.com. Samer Habbas, welcome to the News Blitz.
Good afternoon, Randy. How you doing?
Doing great. So let's go ahead and tell me your reaction to what they're calling the Preventing Accident Victims from Self-Dealing Attorneys Act.
Yes, Randy. I mean, the initiative that Uber is trying to put forth in the November elections is quite deceptive to the California voter. It makes it look great on paper. They say a lot of things that may sound great on its face, but when you read deeply inside the initiative, what the voter's going to see is that this doesn't help them at all, but rather it's going to be something that's going to take away their legal rights.
So what's being sold to voters, at least at the base level, is that, hey, this is going to be good for everybody. It caps attorney's fees at 25%. So what do you think it really does?
Well, it does more than cap the attorney fees at 25%. What Uber is not telling the voters is that if attorney fees are capped at 25%, and that includes not just attorney fees, but they're also including the reimbursement of the medical bills and the attorney expenses. And when that cap is at 25% and it's being told that the voter's going to get 75% of the settlement, Uber knows that's an economic infeasibility. When we take on cases for personal injury, we take them on a contingency fee basis. And not only do we get a fee, but we front the cost of litigation. And cost of litigation can run up on some of our cases. They easily run up to $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. We take that risk for our client because most of our clients cannot come up front with that money. Now, if we break that down, this initiative, and break down how the numbers would work if it was to pass, let's say hypothetically a client had a case that was worth $100,000, and it was going to take $100,000 to prove that injury or $75,000 to prove that injury. Well, if we do the simple math, if you take 100 minus 100, you're left with a net zero at that point of what's left. Well, if you go further, there would be zero fee. The lawyer would just get back to 100 they fronted, and the client would be left with a stack of medical bills. It's just not possible. Uber has high-powered attorneys that go out and defend these cases rigorously, and they will be spending anywhere from $500 an hour to $2,000 an hour. I've tried cases. I've litigated them thoroughly. The experts are not cheap. It costs a lot of money. So if this is the pass, unfortunately, lawyers such as myself would not be in a position to take on automobile accident crashes. Now, the initiative, what they also don't tell you and what they're presenting to the public is it's also there to cap medical expenses for the providers to obtain 125% of the Medicare rate and 170% the Medi-Cal rate. Well, that also would make it nearly impossible for doctors to see an injured party as well. It's also going to increase the burden of proof an injured party would have to show a jury from preponderance of the evidence to a higher burden, creating extra hurdles for the injured party to be compensated for their injuries. So what is it that Uber is trying to do here? It's trying to eliminate legal representation of injured parties so they force them to be unrepresented and take advantage of them by making them lowball offers because they know if this passes, lawyers just can't take these cases. And let's be honest, I mean, it's extremely difficult for a non-attorney to go up against a billion-dollar corporation, billion-dollar insurance agencies. This thing doesn't only affect Uber. It's important that the voters know that it affects all automobile accidents. So how can a person represent themselves against 3-4 high-powered law attorneys that are billing at rates of $500 to $2,000? Interestingly, Randy, is that the initiative has no cap for defense attorney fees. So Uber and the insurance carriers in the auto accidents will have no problem paying their attorneys an unlimited amount of money to fight you while you're unrepresented. Who's the loser here? The loser here is going to be the California voter, and the winner is going to be the billion-dollar corporation. This is nothing more than a deceptive act that is being run by corporate greed, Randy.
Well, and even though it's being funded by Uber, would this only apply to rideshare, or this would be rule changes that apply to all accident cases?
It's a good question. This is an initiative that will affect all automobile accident cases. So it's not just Uber or Lyft or any rideshare company or a taxi that transports passengers. This affects all auto accidents. If you're in an automobile accident with just a civilian that hits you running a red light, that affects them as well. So it's all auto accidents. That's what's the interesting take of it all is, why is it auto accidents? Well, who's in the business of auto accidents? Uber. So Uber is trying to pass measures that are going to help their profitability. Now, a lot of the voters don't know what Uber did last year with its insurance limits, but this is something that should be brought to the lawyers, to the public's attention. Uber initially had a $1 million underinsured motorist requirement by the state to be available for its passengers in the event they're involved in a crash. And Uber's fought for years and spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to fight to lower that limit. And they succeeded. So this year, passengers in an Uber only have individual insurance limits of $60,000 if they're injured by an uninsured or underinsured driver. Well, how does that work? If you're riding an Uber and a party hits you and you suffer serious injury, you suffer a death or a brain injury or an injury that requires a back surgery or neck surgery, Uber has lowered the limit that they will give you against that uninsured motorist to $60,000 from what used to be $1 million. Now, the voter has to ask themselves, does this sound like a company that's looking out for the best interest and is looking to protect the consumer? If they're looking to protect the consumers, why do they spend hundreds of millions of dollars lowering the amount of money that the passengers that pay them for rideshare are able to get? And they got the state to lower that amount. So now, if you're involved in a crash and hit by an uninsured motorist, and let's call it a drunk driver that's uninsured, Uber is saying, look, the most insurance coverage, we're going to give you $60,000. Randy, it's logics. If someone cares for you or is looking out for your best interest, then why do they drop down the amount of money that you get if you're injured in the vehicle that they're transporting you in and they're making money off of you? So, yeah, this is all automobile accidents. Also, important point to bring about is it also involves product defects. So one may think, well, this will only affect if I'm involved with a crash with another car. Not necessarily just that. If Uber's using driverless vehicles, which is in their plans, if people look deeper into this, Uber plans on using autonomous vehicles and not having a driver in the car. If that vehicle was to have a defect that causes a major brain injury, for example, that vehicle doesn't stop on a red light when it's supposed to, and it glitches. Well, the act that they're putting up in November would apply to that too, because as long as your injury is involved in an automobile, it carries all of that. If you're in an automobile, if a bicyclist is hit by an automobile, it applies to that bicyclist as well. So it's a catch-all of all. It's a catch-all of all automobile-involved collisions. So it's very dangerous. It's a very dangerous proposition to the voter. And what's going to happen is, with not only affecting the ability of a lawyer to take a case, but also affecting the ability of a doctor to treat patients on a lien, the patients will be left where? They'll be left looking at the state of California using the Medi-Cal system to pay for their medical bills. And that, what Uber is not telling you, is going to create a tax crush on the state when the state is now spending a ton of more money spent on people that are injured by the negligence of another person when it should not be the state's responsibility.
We're speaking with Samer Habbas, who is an attorney, talking about the bill that Uber is trying to get people to vote on in November, the Preventing Accident Victims from Self-Dealing Attorneys Act. Now, that is only one of the rideshare bills that's going to be on the November ballot, and some are speculating part of the reason Uber's trying to limit their liability is they're worried of the other bill passing, the Sexual Assault Against Rideshare Passengers and Drivers Prevention and Accountability Act, a proposal that would require Uber to follow the same safety standards as taxis, buses, and trains, and I'm going to guess they don't want to do that.
That's correct. They don't want to do that, and they haven't wanted them to do that because that will cost them. That's going to increase the expenses on them. This is just corporate greed at the expense of the rider. I mean, there's nothing wrong with protecting your riders, and Uber does not want to voluntarily do that, and they're fighting against that. And that's something that the voters should be aware of: is that if this company clearly cares about rider safety, then why is it at issue with the other initiative that's going to be dueling this one? Why not protect these people from the dangerous drivers and the dangerous actors? Why are we trying to limit a person's ability to obtain legal counsel by capping an attorney fee at 25%, including medical bills and including litigation expenses? Why is that? Because Uber doesn't care about customer safety nor being held accountable for the negligence of its drivers who would be impacted. I mean, if that's the bottom line, is they don't want to pay people for the injuries that they cause. They want to put drivers on the road that shouldn't be on the road, and when something goes bad, they want to affect your ability to obtain legal counsel, because they know about legal counsel. You can't do it on your own, and that's what it's about. It's about corporate greed, increasing corporate profits at the expense and safety of those that are using the Ubers and the vehicles on the road.
Well, and not only that, we've seen, thanks to investigations from CBS News in California, how Uber has been pretty much blatantly negligent in allowing fraudulent drivers on their platform, whether it's people using stolen identities, renting accounts on Facebook Marketplace. There are a lot of people who are on Uber, who are on DoorDash, who are not supposed to be on there. They wouldn't pass a background check, and Uber has been completely indifferent to be regulating their own platform as to who's driving for them.
That's correct, Randy. I mean, that's the problem. We see that. We see Uber drivers that have criminal history in their backgrounds. We see Uber drivers, and if everyone's watching the news or keeping up with current events, you'll see stories where there was just a hostage crisis involving an Uber driver in, I believe, in the LA area just last week. There's more than we can count sexual assault victims that ride in Ubers, and part of that reason is because there's not stringent background checks. This other initiative will hold them accountable for that. They need to make sure that the people that they put in their vehicles are safe to be behind the wheel. That they are who they are. By having these fingerprint checks, the background checks, reporting the sexual assaults, you're going to see more safety for the passengers. And again, I keep saying this, but why would you want to fight that initiative if you care for customer safety, as you continuously say in your advertisements that publish that you're all about protecting the consumer? So if you're about protecting the consumer, what's the issue with the background checks? It'll cost some money, but go ahead, Randy.
We're running out of time. Samer Habbas, the founding and managing partner of Habbas and Associates, the website habbaspilaw.com. The bill that you need to be looking out for in November is called the Preventing Accident Victims from Self-Dealing Attorneys Act. Samer Habbas, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, Randy, I appreciate the time. And remember to vote no on that act because it's not going to help you.